to know my place. Out of all the past illusions, out of all the dreams come true, I was gone until I finally.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
If you cried out for more, if you reached out for me, I would run into the storm just to keep you here with me. I have gone beyond my years, wasted half my life, but I found it all in you. Did I save you? 'Cause I know you saved me too. Let me take a step towards you. Let me feel you in my hands. Let me cross this line and show you where it leads. There's a darkness down inside me that I know we'll both enjoy, and it's screaming from within to set it free. I have left this flying nightmare in my wake, but out of sight. All I want is deviation by design. Out of all the past confusion, out of all the common spite, just tell me I am yours, 'cause you are mine. And if you cried out for more, if you reached out for me, I would run into the storm just to keep you here with me. I have gone beyond my years, I wasted half my life, but I found it all in you. Did I save you? 'Cause I know you saved me too.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
It is shining like 3 seeds of pomegranates in my hands. It's just us that's on this beach and all this sand, all of this water. I know, but damn, I know we ain't supposed to touch it. We only live once, man. You said, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Then said, take it, take it, take it. I said, didn't we do this really? Shouldn't we have waited? You're making faces, probably so mad. We're in the ocean, waves are rolling in your eyes. Pulses high, the heartbeats, we're being called to the other side, girl. Lost in the vibe, we can't sleep, our clothes off, feel so good inside, girl. It's been so long since we've been away from home. All the vibes, every last one gone. Best believe when this shit gone. It's been so long since we've been away from home. All the vibes, every last one gone. Best believe when this shit gone. What's the reason why we should do this tonight? Spend the night, spend the night, spend the night, spend the night. So much you won't see without open eyes. Close eyes, close sight, close mind, close mind. New feelings is bringing in. What's this tone I'm singing in? Your eyes are twinkling, my lips are tingling. You are my synonym, you're my best friend in the world. All this adrenaline, melting my systems. Hey, your heartbeats, we're being called to the other side, girl. Lost in the vibe, we can't sleep, our clothes off, feel so good inside, girl. It's been so long since we've been away from home. All the vibes, every last one gone. Best believe when this shit gone. It's been so long since we've been away from home. All the vibes. hurts, every last one gone. Best believe knowing this shit's wrong.
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about time. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. Unavoidable.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
All broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. We are live on the Fringe FM. It is July the 16th, 2024. I think it's Tuesday. Is it Wednesday or Tuesday? No, it's Tuesday. Right. So we're still doing the fundraiser for to help cool the shack back down. And it's been fun, honestly. And I got a cool announcement to make, too. Before we get deep into the esoterics tonight, all right? One of our listeners did get a reading for themselves. And by the way, this has been a journey, like an experience for me, right? To spend an hour with each person that I've got to, at least an hour with each person I've got to hang out with. I've met some new people. It's been really cool because doing this whole shack thing, especially with the AC down, it's a bit isolating, right? And some of the responses that I've gotten from the readings and just being able to hang out with people too and get to know them, it's been amazing. It really has. And a bit profound too, actually. So we have a listener that not only got a reading, one of the $30 readings that we're doing for the fundraiser so we can get a new AC in here, but she's going to give one away to somebody. Now I have to figure out how to do this, right? So the first one, I think what I'm going to do is the first one that doesn't fall asleep tonight, I'm going to quiz you at the end of the show, and if I know you're not asleep, I might give you you be the winner. Hell, I don't know. Not good with contests. I got to figure that stuff out. But we are going to give one away because that's what you wanted. What's up, Matt? What's up, Sir Wolf? Michael? brother, if you need to lay down and pass smooth out, go for it. But I will say tonight, we're going to get into the, I probably should tell you how to get it, right? So if you go to the Fringe FM and you make a donation and it's $30, you can email producer@fringe.fm and say, this is for the reading. I want a reading. I want the deal, because I do these for $100 an hour, and I don't do them that often. So this is a big sale. Okay. Now, if you do that and email me, that's great. You could also go to the website. It's there on the website too at fringe.fm. But the easiest way, but it's more of a pain in the ass for me, but really the easiest way for you would be to go to Patreon, and it's under the shop to get it, to get the reading. One warning with that, though. If you use the iOS app, and I'm sure they'd probably kick me off the program if they knew I was telling you this, but whatever, it's the facts. If you use the iOS app, they're going to charge you $13 more, and they're going to make me wait 75 days before I can even access it. What's up with Apple? I don't get it. But so just go to the website. Use the websites. It's okay. You don't have to use apps all the time. Take your nap, bud. That's right. Take your nap. But tonight we're going to talk about one of the most important Sephirah on the tree. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, we've been going down the tree of life, reading the Mystical Kabbalah by Dion, but this is kind of a deeper study, I guess you could say, in the tree of life. And if any of you guys have made it through all this craziness, you're going to know quite a bit more. And I'll keep reiterating this because I need you to know this too in your own mind. You're probably going to know quite a bit more about the 10 Sephirah than most. I'm not saying most occultists, but just most people. So you should have some bigger knowledge of it, right? Which will help. So this tree of life, just going to reiterate it, is just a philosophical system that the Western mysteries have been based off of, the Hermetic magic has been based off of, alchemy, all these different things have kind of been based off this tree. So it's kind of like the flux capacitor for the occult, I guess, if you want to say it, you want to put it like that. That is a long time to wait on your money, isn't it? Long time to wait for an air conditioner. Just don't use the iOS app, and I think everything will be okay. That's all I'm saying. But if you have to, you have to. So, man, I understand the ease of use, too. I get it. So let me pull this glyph up. If you guys are listening on the radio, just imagine the tree of life. In my opinion, this Sephirah that we're about to get into is the most important one on the tree. Right there where that holy hexagram is, Tiphareth. And I'm hoping, I'm going to zoom into this thing too a little bit and put it right in the center of the moon. And I'm hoping that some of you guys did the homework assignment that I asked you to do. And you went to Liam Christopher's YouTube channel and watched his video, his latest one that he put out Sunday on authenticity. I just heard the craziest noise outside. Sorry. It's a freaky sound. You guys have you guys seen that movie? What is it? Bone Saw? No, it's Bone Hacksaw. Do not watch that before you go to sleep. By the way, don't let your children watch it. But that noise that I just heard was the same noise that was in that movie. It's probably a car on the highway or something. You're just doing sweat lodge therapy. You got that right. I got so angry. You know how you get so hot, you start getting frustrated? That happened today. And I literally punched the punching bag off of the eye hook. Like it came off the hook from the combos, and all the steroids, man. I don't know. But but we're gonna get into Tiphareth. Please understand that when I say Tiphareth, this is the place where all of the stories of the birth, death, and resurrection stories, Christ, and all of these stories, this is where this energy resides. And yes, I'm going to read, and yes, we're going to discuss it. And when this is over, you're going to understand it deeply. So this is chapter 20. By the way, we're getting very close to the end of this book. So you guys that have made it through, that's awesome. That's awesome that you did that. We got a guest coming on. I want to try to finish this thing before the guest comes on this week. So Chapter 20 is Tiphareth, the sixth Sephirah. The title is Tiphareth, or Beauty. I want to mention, too, that you guys can call in at any point in time if you got any questions or you just want to chime in or whatever at 501-777-5631. So it's Tiphareth, means beauty. The Hebrew spelling is Tav, Pei, Aleph, Resh, Tav, from right to left. The magical image is a majestic king or a child. Think about these three images: a majestic king, a child, and a sacrifice god. The situation on the tree is in the center of the pillar of equilibrium. And in the Yetziratic text, the sixth path is called the meditating intelligence, because in it are multiplied the influxes of the emanations, for it causes that influence to flow into all the reservoirs of the blessings with which they themselves are united. Now look at this on the tree, too, before we even get into the text. Every Sephirah on the tree is damn near directly attached to it. There's only one barrier, if you notice, a Sephirah barrier between another Sephirah, which is Yesod, between Malkuth to it. The rest of all of the spheres are connected to it. All right. What's up, Jess Rogie? You going to be broadcasting tonight into the late night? What sounds demented? Watch that movie. Like, if you want to watch that movie, no, if you're squeamish, don't watch it. What's it called? It's a weird name. Bone, is it Bone Hacksaw? No, Bone Hatchet, something like that. It's on Netflix. It's freaky. All right. I have ADD today. Bad. So the sixth path is called the meditating intelligence. So titles given to this are Zerampin, the lesser countenance, Melech, the king, Adam, the son, and the man. The God name is the Tetragrammaton Eloah Vadaoth. Tetragrammaton is basically like saying Jehovah or Yod-He Vav-He-Tu. The archangel that governs this sphere is Raphael, and the order of the angels that are here in this sphere are the Malachim, or the kings. The chakra energy that it corresponds with is the Shemesh and the sun. And the spiritual experience that you have here is the vision of the harmony of all things and the mysteries of the crucifixion. The virtues of the sphere is the devotion to the great work. So if you feel extremely devoted to the great work, you're probably in this sphere. Let's see. What's up, Word Salad? I hope I said hi to you. Some of the symbols that belong in this sphere are the layman, the rosy cross, the Calvary cross, and the truncated pyramid and the cube. The tarot cards that correspond here are the 4 sixes, the 6 of wands, meaning victory, the 6 of cups, meaning joy, the 6 of swords, earned success, and the 6 of pentacles, material success. The color of this sphere in Atziluth, in the archetypal world, is clear rose pink. The color of this sphere in the Bria world, or Bria tree, is yellow. The color of this sphere in the Yetziratic world is rich salmon pink. Actually, I wish she would explain the colors more, but she really doesn't. And the color of the sphere in Asaya is golden amber. So there are 3 important keys to the nature of Tiphareth. Firstly, it's the center of the equilibrium of the whole tree, being in the middle of the center pillar. And secondly, it is Kether on a lower arc and Yesod on a higher arc. And thirdly, it is the point of transmutation between the planes of force and the planes of form. The titles that are bestowed on it are the Kabbalistic nomenclature bear this out. So from the point of view of Kether, from the point of view of the very top sphere, it is a child, or the son of God, right? From the point of the view of the earth, or Malkuth, it is a king. And from the point of the view of the transmutation of force, it is a sacrifice to God. And you'll see this in several stories, not just the Christian story, but Egyptian, Eleusinian, there's all kinds of stories that this is in. So macrocosmically, that is to say from the Kether standpoint, Tiphareth is the equilibrium of Chesed and Geburah. Microcosmically, that is to say from the point of the view of the transcendental psychology, It is the point where the types of consciousness characteristic of Kether and Yesod are brought to a focus, and Hod and Netzach equally find their synthesis here in Tiphareth. The 6 Sephirah, of which Tiphareth is the center, are sometimes called the Adam Kadmon, or the archetypal man. In fact, Tiphareth cannot rightly be understood save as the central point of these 6, wherein it rules as a king in his kingdom. It is these 6 which, for all practical purposes, constitute the archetypal kingdom, which lies behind the kingdom of form and Malkuth, and completely dominates and determines the passivities of matter. So before everything comes into existence, that force has dominated it. And in like biblical texts, it's like, I am in you and you in me, or something. How does he say it? I always get it mixed up. I'm in the Father, I in the Father, and the Father in me, you and me. So basically, he's showing you how the stuff works on the tree when he says that stuff. So when we have to consider a Sephirah in relation to its neighbors in order to interpret in the light of its position on the tree, it's not possible to proceed with an entirely systematic and orderly exposition of this Kabbalistic system, for we must, of necessity, forestall, I wish I could do her accent, forestall with partial explanations if our argument is to be comprehensible. We must therefore give some explanation of the 3 lower Sephiroth grouped around Tiphareth, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Netzach, the one on the bottom right with the 7-pointed star, is concerned with the nature forces and the elemental contacts. Hod, there on the bottom left, right, the 8-pointed star, with the this sphere is concerned with ceremonial magic and the occult and knowledge. And Yesod, the purple one down there in the middle, before Malkuth, with psychism and the etheric double. See, I told you there was etheric doubles. Tiphareth itself, supported by Gabora and Gedula, represents seership, or the higher psychism of the individuality. And each Sephirah, of course, has its subjective and objective aspects, its factor in psychology, and its plane in the universe. The 4 Sephirah below Tiphareth represent the personality or lower self, and the 4 Sephirah above Tiphareth are the individuality or higher self. Remember that. And Kether is the divine spark or nucleus manifestation. So this is one of the reasons why in like a Golden Dawn temple, when you could pull this up, okay? Just type in Golden Dawn temple or Golden Dawn temple diagram. They make the magic, when you're doing the magic work, the first order, the outer order, which is magic, when you're doing that work, that whole temple represents the lower 4, that lower part of the tree. Because you're kind of invoking the elements astrally into Malkuth, and you're working out this part of yourself to get to your higher self, to come into Tiphareth, basically. And you'll see this in the diagram, or if you even study the books, it'll flat out tell you. So when you're like working with different elements or doing different things, right, and you're moving the pillars to certain sides, you're actually kind of putting yourself in certain situations on the tree. Chick Cicero wrote a good book about that too. So in Tiphareth, we find the archetypal ideals brought to focus and transmuted into archetypal ideas. It is, in fact, the place of incarnation. For this reason, it is called the child. And because incarnation of the God ideal also implies the sacrificial disincarnation, to Tiphareth are assigned the mysteries of the crucifixion, and all the sacrificed gods and all the pantheons are placed here when the tree is applied to the pantheons. God the Father is assigned to Kether, but God the Son is assigned to Tiphareth for the reasons given above. Exoteric religion goes no further up the tree than Tiphareth. It has no understanding of the mysteries of creation as represented by the symbolism of Kether, Chokmah, and Bina, nor the modes of operation of the dark and bright archangels as represented in the symbolism of Gabor and Gedula. Nor does it, religion, understand the mysteries of consciousness and the transmutation of force as represented in the invisible Sephirah Da'ath, which has no symbolism. So in Tiphareth, God is made manifest in form and dwells among us. For example, he comes within range of human consciousness. So Tiphareth, the Son, shows us Kether, the Father. In order that form may be stabilized, the component forces out of which is built must be brought into equilibrium. Therefore do we find the idea of the mediator or the redeemer inherent in this Sephirah. When the Godhead in its very self manifests in form, that form must be perfectly equilibrated. One might, with equal truth, reverse the proposition and say that when the forces building a form are perfectly equilibrated, the Godhead, its very self, is manifesting in that form according to its type. God is made manifest among us when the conditions permit of the manifestation. So having come through into manifestation on the planes of form and the child aspect of Tiphareth, remember that's a verse too. No, everyone's going to enter the kingdom of heaven as a child, right? Got to have that whole childlike heart. So having come through into manifestation on the planes of form and the child aspect of Tiphareth, the incarnated God grows to manhood and becomes the Redeemer. In other words, having obtained incarnation by means of matter in a virgin state. Did y'all hear that? In other words, having obtained incarnation by means of matter in a virgin state. For example, Mary, Mara, the sea, the great mother, Bina, or Mary. It's not some divine sex act, but it is, but it's not like what people think. So Bina, a supernal, as distinguished from the inferior mother, Malkuth, the developing God manifestation, is forever striving to bring the kingdom of the sixth central Sephiroth into a state of balance. So when the glyph of the fall is represented upon the tree, it is interesting to note that the heads of the great serpent that rises out of the chaos only come as far as Tiphareth and do not overpass it. I wonder if I could get a glyph of the fall so you can see what she's talking about. Have you guys seen this? I need an assistant to hand me these pictures. Yeah, okay. I'll grab it during break. Just don't let me forget. I'll try to find it. I got Bing on here. It sucks. So when the glyph of the fall is represented upon the tree, it'll show the heads of the great serpent that rise out of chaos, and they come as far as Tiphareth, and they don't go past it. So the Redeemer then manifests in Tiphareth and is forever striving to redeem his kingdom by reuniting it to the supernals across the gulf made by the fall, which separated the lower Sephiroth from the higher, and bringing the diverse forces of the sixfold kingdom into equilibrium. So now you know why Crowley called himself the Beast, right? So Crowley looked at himself as an adept. And if 6 is the representation of Tiphareth, when they asked him, and they did flat out ask him in several times, "What do you call yourself, the Beast?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm the Beast. I'm holy, and I'm Tiphareth. I'm the adept." Or what else did he call himself? Little Sunshine. It's like he made a mockery. It almost pisses me off because he kind of made a mockery of this whole beautiful thing, if you ask me. So to this end are the incarnated God sacrificed, dying for the people, in order that tremendous emotional force is set free by this act that may compensate the unbalanced force of the kingdom and thus redeem it or bring it into balance. It is this sphere on the tree that is called the Christ Center, and it is here that the Christian religion has its focusing point. The pantheistic faith, such as the Greeks and the Egyptians, center is in Yesod, and the metaphysical faiths, such as the Buddhists and the Confucians, aim at Kether. But as all religions worthy of the name have both an esoteric or mystical and an exoteric or pantheistic aspect, Christianity, although it is essentially a Tiphareth faith, has its mystical aspect centering in Kether, and its magical aspect, as seen in popular continental Catholicism, centering in Yesod. Its evangelical aspect aims at the concentration on Tiphareth as child and sacrifice God, and ignores the aspect of the king in the center of his kingdom, surrounded by the 5 holy Sephirah of manifestation. So now that we've considered the tree from the macrocosmic point of view, seeing the different archetypes of manifesting force come into action and build the universe, and have but remotely approached them from the microcosmic point of view and their psychological aspects as factors in consciousness. But with Tiphareth, our mode of approach changes. For from now on, the archetypal forces are locked up in forms and can only be approached from the point of view of their effect upon consciousness. In other words, our mode of approach must now be, now that we're here in Tiphareth, our mode of approach must now be, though the direct experience of the senses. Though these senses are not of the physical plane only, but the function in both Tiphareth and Yesod. They function both there, according to each type. So while we are on a higher level, before on the other Sephirah, we had to rely on metaphysical analogies and reasoning by deduction from first cause or first principles, right? But now that we are within the legitimate field of inductive science and must submit ourselves to its discipline and express our findings in its terms, but at the same time we must maintain our link with transcendentals through Tiphareth, and this is achieved by expressing the symbolism of Tiphareth in the terms of the mystical experience. I think you know how many people have told themselves that they were Jesus? Like, type in on YouTube where people are claiming to be Jesus Christ, you know. They're like, you're Jesus Christ? Like, yeah, I'm Jesus Christ. I think in some form I'm not saying that they're totally tapped into Tiphareth, but they probably had some kind of dream and tapped into Tiphareth or something, and they're like, oh, I'm Jesus? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? There's been several people that have claimed to have been Jesus Christ or whatever. Whew. Sweating to the oldies, baby. All mystical experiences of the type in which the vision ends in blinding light are assigned to Tiphareth. For the fading out of form and the overwhelming influx of force characterizes the transitional mode of consciousness of the sphere on the tree. Visions which maintain clearly outlined forms throughout are characteristic of Yesod. Illuminations which have no form, such as those described by Plotinus, are rising towards Kether. In Tiphareth, are gathered up and interpreted the operations of the nature magic of Netzach and the hermetic magic of Hod. So you can think about that too when you're looking at the sphere of Netzach, which is nature magic, the sphere of Hod, hermetic magic. Both these operations are in terms of form, though form predominates in the operations of Hod to a greater degree than in those of Netzach. But all the astral visions of Yesod also must be translated into terms of metaphysics via the mystical experience of Tiphareth. If this translation is not made, then we become hallucinated, we become tricked. For we think the reflections cast into the mirror of the subconscious mind and translated there into terms of brain consciousness are the actual things of which they are really only the symbolic representations. So what she's saying there is this is another reason why we do dream journals, right? So whether we're astral traveling or we're like doing out of body stuff or whatever, we'll journal it. And we think that we've got it figured out. We're trying to interpret the dream the whole time. But the reason why we journal it and have a record of it is because if you're doing the great work, like if you're actually doing the work, these dreams will keep opening things up to you. So one day you might have something figured out and you think you understand the dream, which is in the sphere of Yesod, right? And let's say, I don't know, a year down the road, you have an experience or you grow through something or you get a download, whatever you want to call it. You get the wisdom and understanding of some other lesson. And you're like, wait, didn't I have a dream about this, right? And this is when stuff gets really interesting because then you start to see the cave of how deep your brain actually goes, right? So then you go back to your journal, open the dream, and you're like, holy shit. Literally, holy shit. No. But like, your subconscious was delivering messages to you that you really didn't even understand at the time. And they get deeper and deeper. Just take a little pause here to show you how to give you an example of how deep the interverse is, I don't know if you guys watch the Joe Rogan podcast, right? But there is a guy named Ari Shaffir on there, and he smokes salvia, like all the cool kids are doing. He smoked salvia, but he had an experience. This is what he states, that he was only gone for like 8 minutes, but while he was down in salvia, he felt like he was gone for months. He had a whole other life. He had friends. He was living underwater, right? Like he breathed water, is what he said. But he had a wife, a girlfriend, friends. He actually felt like he was there for 6 months. It was like that was his reality. And when he woke back up from the salvia trip, he's struggling to breathe because he thought he was still breathing water. Now, this was so real to him, even the time, he states this, I don't know how true this is, but even the time of like 6 months was how long he was there. That's a trippy thought. So if what he's saying is real, it's kind of a scary thought too, right? But if what he's saying is real, then the depths of our inner consciousness go way, way deeper than we think. And most of the people walking around thinking that they're enlightened really aren't. Right? I'm only saying if Ari Shaffir is right. Just keep a dream journal. You'll see what I'm talking about. For real. Don't just talk about it. Like, really keep one. So we can be tricked or think that the reflections that are cast into the mirror of the subconscious mind and translated there into terms of brain consciousness are the actual things of which they're really only just symbolic representations. So Kether is metaphysical, Yesod is psychic, and Tiphareth is essentially mystical. Mystic being understood as a mode of mentation in which consciousness ceases to work in symbolic subconscious representations, but apprehends by means of emotional reactions. That's what mystic is to her. The different additional titles and symbolism assigned to the various Sephirah, and especially the God names thereof, give us a very important key for the unlocking of the mysteries of the Bible, which is essentially a Kabbalistic book. There she said it. Once you unlock this whole tree and you go back and read the Bible again, you won't just uncover astrological hidden things. You'll uncover a ton of stuff. According to the manner in which deity is referred to, we know to what sphere on the tree the particular mode of manifestation should be assigned. All references to the Son always refer to Tiphareth, and all references to the Father refer to Kether, and all references to the Holy Ghost refer to Yesod, and very deep mysteries are concealed here, for the Holy Ghost is the aspect of the Godhead that is worshipped in the occult lodges. The worship of pantheistic nature forces and elemental operations take place under the presidency of God the Father, and the regenerative, ethical aspect of religion, which is the exoteric aspect for this epoch, is under the presidency of the God of the Son and Tiphareth. There is a typo here. It says Tiphareth. You guys did salvia? Did you time travel when you did it? Yo, like if you did salvia and you went and you disappeared for like months, or at least it felt like that, I want to know about it. Because I've only heard like 2 stories about this. Tiphareth, however, is not only the center of the sacrifice god, but also the center of the inebriating god, the giver of illumination. Dionysus is assigned to this center, as well as Osiris. For as we've already seen, the central pillar is concerned with the modes of consciousness and human consciousness rising from Yesod by the path of the arrow, and it receives illumination and Tiphareth. Therefore, all the givers of illumination in the pantheons are assigned to Tiphareth. Illumination consists in the introduction of the mind to a higher mode of consciousness than that which is built up out of the sensory experience. In illumination, the mind changes gear, as it were, unless, however, the new mode of consciousness is connected up with the old and translated into terms of finite thought. It remains as a flash of light, so brilliant that it blinds. We do not see by means of the ray of light that shines upon us, but the means of the amount of the ray which is reflected from the objects of our own dimension upon which it lights. So what she's saying is like if the light of consciousness, or anytime you have a vision of that light experience, if it was really coming from Kether, it would probably blast you into pieces. So you're probably just getting a reflection, if you can comprehend it at all. 2 huge rips. Man, I'm afraid of salvia. I don't think I'll ever do it, honestly. And I'm the OG Void Walker, 001. And I think I might have found something that I might not actually do, you know. But you don't see me like sniffing paint neither. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but. All right, I'm straying again. So unless there are ideas in our minds which are illuminated by this higher mode of consciousness, our minds are merely overwhelmed, and the darkness is more intense to our eyes after the blinding experience of a high mode of consciousness than it was before. In fact, we do not so much change gear as throw the engine of our mind out of gear altogether. This, for the most part, is what illumination actually amounts to. There's enough of a flash to convince us of the reality of superphysical existence, but not enough to teach us anything of its nature. Isn't that a bitch? Anytime we have mystical experiences, that kind of happens. It's kind of quick, just like a real, like etheric out-of-body experience. It's kind of quick. It's really cool. It's not like a dream. You don't forget anything. But it's hard. There's some really things that are hard to explain, too. Or just like when you have like that oneness. If you've ever heard someone try to explain, what was his name? Jim Carrey, when he was trying to explain that mystical experience he had. Pretty hard for him to explain it. So the importance of Tiphareth, or this stage in the mystical experience, lies in the fact that the incarnation of the child takes place here. In other words, mystical experiences gradually builds up a body of images and ideas that are lit up and made visible when illuminations take place. The child aspect of Tiphareth is also a very important one to us in such practical works of the mysteries as it is concerned with illumination. For we must accept the fact that the child Christ does not spring like Minerva, full armed from the head of God the Father, but starts as a small thing, humbly laid among the beasts, and not even housed with humans. Yeah, think about that. Why did they put him in a manger and all this stuff? It's not just a part of the story. All that stuff means something. It's got hidden messages in it. Yes, astrological too, but also Kabbalistic. So the first glimpses of mystical experience must perforce be very limited, because we have not had time to build up through experience a body of images and ideas that shall serve to represent them. These can only go together with time, each transcendental experience adding its quota and subsequent rational meditations organizing them. Mystics are very apt to make the mistake of thinking that they are following the star to the place of the Sermon on the Mount, not to the manger at Bethlehem, the birthplace. It is here that the method of the tree is so valuable, enabling the transcendent to be expressed in terms of symbolism, and symbolism to be translated into terms of metaphysics, thus linking the psychic with the spiritual via the intellect, and bringing all three aspects of our Trinitarian consciousness into focus. It is in Tiphareth that this translation is made, for in Tiphareth are received the mystical experiences of direct consciousness, which illuminates the psychic symbols. She said the same thing, kind of in 3 different ways there. The central pillar of the tree is essentially the pillar of consciousness, just as the 2 side pillars are the pillars of active and passive powers. When considered microcosmically, that is to say from the point of view of psychology instead of cosmology, Kether, the divine spark round the individual is being individualized being builds up. Damn, she's messed up there. It must be regarded as the nucleus of consciousness rather than consciousness itself. Da'ath, the invisible sphere, is also called the central pillar, though strictly speaking it always belongs to another plane, to that which on the tree is being considered. For instance, as we are considering the tree microcosmically at the moment, Da'ath would be the point of contact with the macrocosm. It's not until we come to Tiphareth that we get the clear-cut, individualized consciousness. So Tiphareth is the functional apex of the second triad on the tree, whose two basal angles consist of Geburah and Chesed, the second triad emanating from the first triad of the three supernals, and it forms the evolving individuality or spiritual soul. So this is where individuality comes from, metaphysically. So it is this which endures and builds up throughout evolution. It is from this that the successive personalities, the units of incarnation, are emanated, and it is into this that the active essence of experience is absorbed at the end of each incarnation, when the incarnating unit dissolves into dust and ether. Holy shit. It is this second triad which forms the oversoul, the higher self, or the holy guardian angel, the first initiator. It is the voice of this higher self which is so often heard with the inner ear, and not the voice of disincarnate entities or of God himself, as is thought by those who have had no training in the tradition. The inner ear. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody talking about clairvoyance being like someone calling it being heard in the inner ear or whatever. The doctor says, I'll do PCP, LSD, and shrooms, not doing salvia. Yeah, I'm with you on that. All you got to do is watch like 5 or 6 videos, right, of people just like drooling on themselves or thinking they're going to die or something. It doesn't look... I mean, yeah, we're void walkers. We're willing to explore consciousness practically. It just... I don't know, man. It's worse than a Jeffrey, you know? It doesn't look cool. We might get Thomas on here and do a whole show about it because he's pretty into it. So overshadowed indirectly by the second triad, the third triad builds up through the experience of incarnation, with Malkuth as its physical vehicle. Brain consciousness, the brain consciousness, is of Malkuth. And as long as we're imprisoned in Malkuth, that's all we got. But the doors of Malkuth are not closely shut nowadays, and many there are who can peer through the crack at the phantasmagoria of the astral plane and experience the psychic consciousness of Yesod. Dude, we got, like, I don't know when she wrote this, how many people were getting out of body, but I wonder what she'd think now, because we got all kinds of people getting out of body now or having astral experiences. When this has been achieved, the way opens up for the higher psychism, the true seership, which is the characteristic of the consciousness of Tiphareth. That's why I'm telling you guys, man. So in the operation of the mysteries, you have theurgy, which is magic, or the operation of the moon, right? So it's kind of breaking through the physical plane into the astral. And then you have alchemy, the operation of the sun, which is the solar work, Tiphareth work. And then you have the stars, which when you get to that point, I think you're just like a star being, man. Couldn't tell you, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Our first experience of the higher psychism, therefore, is usually in terms of the lower psychism to commence with. For we have only just risen clear of Malkuth and are looking up at the sun of Tiphareth from the moon sphere of Yesod. Therefore, we hear voices with the inner ear and see visions within the inner eye. But they differ from ordinary psychic consciousness because they are not the direct representations of astral forms, but symbolic presentations of spiritual things in terms of astral consciousness. This is a normal function of the subconscious mind, and it is very important that it should be thoroughly understood, for misconceptions on this point give rise to very serious problems and may even lead to mental imbalance, where people might go crazy. Those who are familiar with the Kabbalistic terminology know that the first of the greater initiations is said to consist of the power to enjoy the knowledge and conversation of our holy guardian angel. This holy guardian angel, be it remembered, is really our own higher self. It is the prime characteristic of this higher mode of mentation that it consists neither in voices nor visions, but is pure consciousness. It is an intensification of awareness, And from this quickening of the mind comes a peculiar power of insight and penetration, which is of the nature of the hyperdeveloped intuition. The higher consciousness is never psychic, but always intuitive, containing no sensory imagery. It is this absence of sensory imagery which tells the experienced initiate that he is on the level of the higher consciousness. One of the most beautiful stories I ever heard, I was actually with, I was hosting one of Magical Egypt's videos with Lon Malo Duquette and another guy, I can't think of his name, but he was really knowledgeable too. And Lon Malo Duquette was talking about the Holy Guardian Angel. And he said he experienced like this download from it, but it wasn't in a dream. It wasn't in like some symbols or some kind of magical fairy thing. It was really, I think it was either him watching a dance between a man and a woman. And it was the way he was explaining it is it's like just watching that dance downloaded this whole vision of this, not vision, but experience of love and his holy guardian angel, which is really intuition. It's not like some crazy psychic thing that happens. It's just like a deep knowing and understanding of something suddenly in the heart, right? The ancients recognized this, and they differentiated between the mantric methods, which include the underworld, catonic or underworld contacts, and the divine inebriation of the mysteries. The Maenads rushing in the train of Dionysus were of an entirely different order of initiation to the Pythonices. The Pythonices were psychics and mediums, but the monads, the initiates of the Dionysiac mysteries, enjoyed exaltation of consciousness and a quickening of life that enabled them to perform amazing prodigies of strength. Well, shit, dude, this is embarrassing, man. Like, I'm sweating like a sieve over here. I feel like I'm in a, what is it? Like I'm at the police station getting questioned about something I know I didn't do, you know? All the dynamic religions have this Dionysiac aspect. Even in the Christian religion, many saints have left record of the crucified Christ of their devotion, coming to them at last as the divine bridegroom. Remember that word, bridegroom? And when they speak of this divine inebriation that comes to them, their language uses the metaphors of human love as its appropriate expression. Hello, I've been telling you guys, man, magic isn't what it seems. Love is all there is. Love is the greatest mystery. Love is the greatest power. It's so simple, but it's just not as cool, you know, and theatric, but it really is that simple. How lovely art thou, my sister, my spouse, faint from the kisses of the lips of God. These things tell a great deal to those who have understanding. What? Where'd she get that from? Game of Thrones? How lovely art thou, my sister, my spouse. The Dionysiac aspect of religion represents an essential factor in human psychology, and it is the misunderstanding of this factor which, upon the one hand, prevents the manifestation of the higher spiritual experiences in our modern civilization, and upon the other, permits of the strange aberrations of religious feeling that, from time to time, give rise to scandal and tragedy in the high places of the more dynamic religious movements. No. So you're not telling me that when people go to churches and they read the words from religious texts and they invoke the Holy Spirit and everybody starts wiggling and flopping around and then they tax them and then the preacher flies off in a Learjet, like, you're not saying that that's a tragedy, are you? There's a certain emotional concentration and exaltation which makes the higher phases of consciousness available, and without which it is impossible to attain them. The images of the astral plane pass over into an intensity of emotion that is like a burning fire. And when all the dross of the nature has gone up in flame, the smoke clears, and we're left with the white heat of pure consciousness. So right there, she's giving you a hint towards the mystic like alchemy process. The images of the astral plane pass over into an intensity of emotion that's like a burning fire. And when all the dross of the nature has gone up in a flame and the smoke clears, We're left with the white heat of pure consciousness. So apparently there's a lot of trash that needs to be worked out in the astral plane, right? By the very nature of the human mind, with the brain as its instrument, this white heat cannot endure for very long. But in the brief space of its lasting, changes occur in the temperament, and the mind itself receives new concepts and undergoes an expansion that never wholly retracts. Yeah, it's called gnosis. The tremendous exaltation of the experience dies away, but we are left with a permanent expansion of personality and an enhanced capacity for life in general, and a power of realization of spiritual realities which could never have been ours if we had not been swung forcibly across the great gulf of consciousness by those moments of ecstasy. Just for the record, too, right? Like, you don't have to, in my opinion, you don't have to know the Kabbalistic tree of life or work the Kabbalistic tree of life to have those alchemical experiences in your life. I think it's cool to know it because it gives you some kind of knowledge to relate to when you're talking about it, like a grammar system. But you don't necessarily have to work with the tree, so to speak, to experience this. Modern spiritual, oh crap, it's 10. All right, hold on. Modern spiritual leaders have no knowledge of the technique of the deliberate production of ecstasy and no idea how to direct it when it occurs spontaneously. Revivalists succeed in producing a mild form of it among unsophisticated people by means of personal magnetism, and the worth of a revivalist is judged by his power to inebriate his hearers. But the consequences of this inebriation are apt to be like the consequences of any other inebriation, and life seems exceedingly stale, flat, and unprofitable when the revivalist moves on to the other fields of activity, because the inebriation dies away. The convert thinks he has lost God or the Holy Spirit has left. No one seems to realize that the ecstasy is a magnesium flash in consciousness, and if it were prolonged, would burn up the brain and nervous system. But although it cannot be, and it is not meant to be prolonged, by means of it, we swing over the dead center of consciousness and awake to a higher life. All right, break time. I got to step outside, let the wind blow. Tomorrow is like supposed to be the peak of heat, and then I think a cold front's coming through, thank goodness. Is that the higher power mentioned in the 12-step program? Right? I removed podcast. This is radio. I don't know. You can't categorize Lighting the Void, even though I call it radio. There's no categorization here, man. We're void walkers. I do like the radio style of things. That's why I do it. Speaking of which, we have to take the Fringe FM break here. And every time I do this, I'm trying to find like a bumper song that's not going to get smashed on YouTube or like demonetized or make the whole freaking video get taken down. But I'm getting to the point where like it's getting annoying to try to keep doing it. All right, we'll be right back. Got a short break and then we'll finish talks about Tiphareth here.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Please help us with the answers.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
Bumper stickers are a fun side hustle with low-cost investment that has built-in advertising to attract local customers in parking lots, rallies, gatherings, conventions, venues, and more. You could potentially sell these bumper stickers on consignment to local businesses, tattoo parlors, head shops, or any other independently owned store that might gear toward the fringe. Bumper stickers are great gift-giving ideas for friends and family. Also, a way to wake up your fellow travelers on the path without having to waste energy in tiresome debates. No car? No problem. Bumper stickers will stick to just about anything with a semi-smooth surface. Go to www.justbsme.com and get your bumper stickers today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Hi, this is Kronox from Belgium, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
From Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire. Brady and the
I'm just drifting. Waiting for things.
Throw the force toward the source, waiting to attain grace. Our paths diverge, but take us to the same place. Cast skyward, weightless when the chains break. Archetypal figures that shape shift and change face. Storm the gates, hit the safe, get the cake. While dog eats dog off a diner family dinner plate.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Escape in effect any minute now. I'ma get it straight. I've seen her face in my dreams since I was young. A Beatrice, a queen, a mother that chides her son. That stumbled through his life when he
brain's frying like an egg in here, man. Of course, the frogs, crickets, the cicadas, all that stuff sound great outside. This is Lighting the Void Radio live on the Fringe FM. It is July the 16th, 2024, in the second part of the show here, talking about Tiphareth. We're doing the fundraiser to help raise money to get a new AC in the shack. If you can't tell, we've had several people help out. We still need a few more, but it's been crazy experience, honestly. Like I talked about it when I opened up the broadcast tonight. I've got to meet some new people, did some readings with some new people, and I can't believe how much, I don't want to say fun, but just the experience of connecting with people. You know, I have to connect with people, man. If you get too much on your own, you'll become a narcissist. Did you know that? Doesn't matter how good of a person you are. If you isolate yourself too much, you just naturally become a narcissist. You need to connect with people so that doesn't happen to you. I don't know if y'all can hear it. If I take off the gate, can y'all hear it? The crickets and frogs? I got the door open. Can you hear it? Listen. It's sweltering hot, but that sounds good, don't it? All right, I got to put the gate back on so you don't hear the fans and stuff. It actually gets cool in here at night at about 3, 4 in the morning. Right? So about 4 o'clock in the morning, I'll open up the door. I'll turn off all the lights so the bugs don't fly in. And I'll crank up the fan on the unit. It doesn't blow cold air, but I'll just crank it up and it'll start sucking the cool air from outside. So I get I think last night I got a good 4.5 hours of sleep. I felt like a cowboy. Bone Tomahawk, that's that movie. If you want to freak yourself out, watch it. All right, let's get back into this. Back to school. Tiphareth. Why is this down so much? Tiphareth. All right, so the technique of the tree gives us accurate definition to these spiritual experiences, and those who are trained in that technique do not mistake the stirring of their own higher consciousness for the voice of God. So from the sensory consciousness of Malkuth through the astral psychism of Yesod to the formless intuitions and quickened consciousness of Tiphareth, they rise and descend smoothly and skillfully, never confusing the planes or suffering them to leak one into the other, but bringing them all into focus in a centralized consciousness. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if Robert Monroe, if you ever read all 3 of Robert Monroe's like Journeys Out of the Body books, like if he would have just used the system just as an experiment. So when he met all these entities and went to all these places and stuff, decided that he was going to use the tree of life as a map or some of the, I guess you could say, symbols to use to help protect themselves or test some of the entities that he ran into and things like that. I often wonder what would have happened. So Tiphareth is called by the Kabbalists Shemesh, or the sphere of the sun. And it is interesting to note that all the sun gods are healing gods, and all the healing gods are sun gods, a fact which affords us a little food for thought. The sun is the central point of our existence. Without the sun, there would be no solar system. And sunlight plays a very important part in the metabolism, the life process of living creatures, and the whole of the nutrition of green plants depends upon it. Its influence is closely allied to that of vitamins, as is proved by the fact that certain vitamins can be used to supplement its activities. We see, therefore, that sunlight is a very important factor in our well-being. We must go even further and say that it is essential to our very existence and that our association with the sun is far more intimate than we realize. The symbol of the sun in the mineral kingdom is gold, pure and precious, which all nations have agreed in calling the metal of the sun, and recognizing as the most precious metal and the basic unit of exchange. Well, it used to be the basic unit of exchange. The part played by gold and the polity of nations far exceeds its intrinsic utility as a metal. It is, moreover, the one substance on earth which is incorruptible and untarnishable. It may be dulled by the accumulation of dirt upon its surface, but the metal itself, unlike silver or iron, undergoes no chemical change or decomposition, and neither does water corrode it. The sun is to us truly the giver of life and the source of all being. It is the only adequate symbol of God the Father, who may aptly be called the Son behind the sun. Tiphareth, in fact, being the immediate reflection of Kether. It is through the meditation of the sun that life comes to the earth, and it is by means of the Tipharic consciousness that we contact the sources of vitality and draw upon them, both consciously and unconsciously. The sun is above all things the symbol of manifesting energy. It is sudden, unaccustomed gushes of solar spiritual energy that causes the divine inebriation of ecstasy. It is gold as the basis of money, which is the objective representation of externalized life force. For verily money is life, and life is money. It's currency, remember? For without money we can have no fullness of life. Life force manifesting on the physical plane as energy and on the mental plane as intelligence and knowledge can be transmuted by the appropriate alchemy into money, which is a token of the capacity of our energy, or energy of someone. Money is the symbol of human energy by means of which we can store up our output of work hour by hour, receiving it back as wages at the end of the week, and spending it on necessities or saving it for future use as we think. For example, this isn't in the book, but it's a perfect time to plug this again. Joe Roop is doing a sale on tarot readings for $30 an hour. He usually charges $100, but since he has a necessity of the need of a new air conditioner, he's doing a summer sale for $30 a reading. Perfect. Energy. The gold which backs the notes is a symbol of human energy and is only earned by an expenditure of that energy. Though it may be the energy of, damn it, I lost my sweat thing. It may be energy of a father or a husband transmitted through an heiress. Yet, nevertheless, it is the symbol of some human being's activity in some sphere, even if it only be the sphere of company promoting or burglary. Man, I wonder if, like, in other societies, or like if there are other races in the universe that don't use a money system at all. Like, people don't work by the hour. They don't use a money system. They don't use some kind of weird social credit system. But have you ever thought about that? Like, how would everything work then? People just trade, barter and trade, and that's it? There has to be some other system in the universe that beings are using. It would suck to travel light years to another advanced race and planet or something, whatever, and they're just exchanging paper still, you know? The secret underground movements of gold, or the gold act in the polity of nations, as hormones act in the human body. And there are cosmic laws governing their tidal and epochal movements which economists do not suspect. Kether, space, the source of all existence, reflects into Tiphareth, which acts as a transformer and distributor of the primal spiritual energy. We receive this energy directly by means of sunlight and indirectly by means of chlorophyll in green plants, which enables them to utilize sunlight, and which we eat at first hand in vegetable foods and at second hand in the tissues of herbivorous creatures. But the sun god is more than the source of life. He is also the healer when life goes wrong. For it is life plus, minus, or misdirected, which is the activity in disease processes. Disease, or dis-ease, has no energy save what it borrows from the life of the organism. It is therefore by the adjustments in the life force that the healing must be brought about. And the sun gods are the natural gods to invoke in this connection, for life and the sun are so intimately connected. Yeah, so in magic, when you're trying to invoke healing, a lot of people think that you'll invoke like Nitzak or Venus, but you really should, if you're doing the correspondences correctly, you should invoke the sun or Raphael or solar energies to heal the body. It is by means of their knowledge of the manipulation of the solar influence that the ancient initiate priests performed their healings, and sun worship lay at the root of the Asclepian cult of ancient Greece. So we know that the ancient pagans worshipped the sun. They had gods of the sun. I think, I can't tell you how many different names for the gods of the sun there are. Not going to right now. My brain can't handle it. But the sun god is more than the source of life. He is also the healer when life goes wrong. It is by the means of their knowledge of the manipulation of the solar influence that the ancient initiate priests perform their healings. Okay. So we moderns have learned the value of sunlight and vitamins in our physiological economy, but we have not realized the very important part played by the spiritual aspect of the solar influences in our psychic economy, using that word in its dictionary sense. There is a Tiphareth factor, or a Tipharethic factor, in the soul of man, which according to ancient tradition has its physical correspondence in the solar plexus, not in the head or the heart, which is able to pick up the subtle aspect of the solar energy in the same way that chlorophyll and the leaf of a plant picks up its more tangible aspect. I think I got one of those big, what do you call it? Pterodactyls. Massive horseflies got in here. If we are cut off from this energy and prevented from assimilating it, we become as sickly and feeble in mind and body as plants growing in a cellar cut off from its more tangible aspect. This cutting off from the spiritual aspect of nature is due to mental attitudes. When we refuse to acknowledge our part in nature and nature's part in us, we inhibit this free flow of life-giving magnetism between the part and the whole, and lacking certain elements essential to spiritual function, psychic health becomes impossible. Psychoanalysts attach great importance to repression as a cause of psychic disease. They learned to recognize repression because in its extreme form of sex repression, its ill effects are conspicuous. They did not realize, however, that sex repression, unless it is caused by circumstances, in which case it does not give rise to disassociation, but is but the result of a cause which lies far deeper than just sex, and has its roots in a false spirituality, a spurious refinement and idealism, which has led to the cutting off of the sympathies, of the recognition of the gratitude of a living creature from the giver of life, the highest aspect of nature. This is caused by, did y'all see that flicker? This is caused by a spiritual vanity which considers the more primitive aspects of nature as beneath its dignity. You usually hear people when they talk about sex like, ew, like adults, they get grossed out by it or something. That's a whole other discussion or whatever. It is because of our spurious ideals with their false values that we have so much neurotic ill health in our midst. It is because Priapus and Cloacina are not given their due as deities that we are cursed by the sun god and cut off from its benign influence, for an insult to his subsidiary aspects is an insult to him. So when a creature of any kind is not fit for a state of reproduction, sexual advances are repellent to it. This is the natural basis of modesty and protects the organism from waste and exhaustion. Because an accumulation of decomposing excreta gives rise to disease, the odor of their excreta, this is getting gross, the odor of their excreta is repulsive to living creatures of even the lowliest development, so that they avoid its neighborhood. Out of these two repulsions, so rational and valuable under natural conditions, under our artificial conditions of civilized life, all manner of irrational taboos have grown up. The repulsion is overdone and no longer serves its biological purpose. What she's trying to do is ease her way into the divine sexual forces or the bridegroom or the union of these two energies. She does it kind of weird, man. She uses too big of words. This is where I kind of like the book, but then I get a little upset with it because she uses really big words and tries to articulate some very simple things she could just say simply, and directly. Our attitudes towards two important sections of natural life implies that they are unnatural or debased or poisonous, and consequently we've cut ourselves off from the earth contacts, and then the circuit is broken, and the heavenly contacts also fail us. The cosmic current comes down from Kether through Tiphareth and Yesod into Malkuth, But if the circuit gets broken anywhere, it cannot function. True, it is impossible totally to break the circuit during life, for the life processes are deeply rooted in nature that we cannot altogether suppress them. But a mental attitude can cause such a kinking of the tube, as it were, so your mind can screw it up if you let it, and so can so insulate and inhibit that only a scanty flow can be sucked through against resistance by the desperate organism. In Tiphareth, the sun center, we have the spiritual manifesting in the natural, and we should give reverence to the sun god as representing the naturalization of spiritual processes, or the spiritualization of natural processes, has had a good deal to answer for in the history of human suffering. The symbols assigned to the six Sephiroth become a very illuminating study when we examine them in the light of what we know about the significance of Tiphareth, for we have a very clear example of the way in which the symbols assigned to a given Sephiroth lace in and out, in long chains of interrelated associations. But the meaning of the Hebrew word Tiphareth is beauty, and of the many definitions of beauty that have been, I've been hearing some weird shit all night. That was weird. If I make a run for it, you know something's up in here. The meaning of the Hebrew word Tiphareth is beauty, and of the many definitions of beauty that have been proposed, the most satisfying is that which finds beauty to J-I-E, what is that? In a due and just proportion, whatever the beautiful thing may be, whether moral or material. It is interesting, therefore, to find the Sephiroth beauty as the central point of equilibrium of the whole tree, and that the one of the two spiritual experiences assigned to Tiphareth is the vision of the harmony of things. So basically, when you see something in nature where it all comes together, like a sunflower, right? You can, if you really look close at a sunflower, you can see the perfection of the balance of all of these energies coming into like this flower, right? The sunflower. And there's all kinds of stuff in nature you can observe this too. It is curious that two separate and at first sight unrelated spiritual experiences should be assigned to Tiphareth. It is in fact the only sphere on the tree where this occurs. It is also unique in having several magical images assigned to it. So we must ask ourselves why it is that the central Sephiroth has these multiple aspects. The answer is to be found in the Yetziratic text assigned to Tiphareth, which declares that the sixth path is called the meditating intelligence. A mediator is essentially a connecting link or an intermediary. Consequently, Tiphareth, in its central position, must be looked upon as a two-way switch, and we must consider it both as receiving the influxes of the emanations and as causing the influence to flow into all the reservoirs of the blessings. We may therefore look upon it as the outward manifestation of the five subtler Sephiroth, and also as the spiritual principle behind the four denser Sephiroth. So the four denser Sephiroth behind it go into Tiphareth, and then outward fluxes the other Sephiroth, right? Hod, Netzach, Yod, Malkuth. Hod, Netzach, Yesod, Malkuth, yeah. If looked at it from the side of this form, it is force. If looked at it from the side of force, it is form. It is, in fact, the archetypal Sephiroth in which the great principles represented by the five higher Sephiroth are formulated into concepts. In it are multiplied the influxes of the emanations, as the Sefer Yetzirah declares. So if you read the Sefer Yetzirah or any other Kabbalistic text, you'll hear this word or this name called Zero-Ampin. The name Zero-Ampin, or lesser countenance, as distinguished from Eric-Ampin, the vast countenance, is one of the titles of Kether, further bears out this idea. For the formless formulations of Kether take shape in this sphere of the higher mind. As previously noted, Kether is reflected into Tiphareth. The Ancient of Days sees himself reflected as in a glass, and the reflected image of the vast countenance is called the lesser countenance and the sun. Or you could just read the story of Narcissus, and that's God in a nutshell, the guy that fell in love with his image. I'm just playing. Don't get mad. I don't think that's really God. It's a cool story, though. But although a lesser manifestation and a younger generation is viewed from above, Tiphareth is also Adam Kadmon, the archetypal man, when viewed from beneath or from the side, that is to say, of Yesod and Malkuth. Tiphareth is Malek, the king, the husband of Malkab, or the bride, which is one of the titles of Malkuth. And in that, we can understand the mystery of the bridegroom that's talked about a lot. Matt says in the chat room, look how the sunflower also emits and sustains life through its seeds. Exactly. It's like the perfection of perfection, and it's observable. It is in Tiphareth that we find the archetypal ideas which form the invisible framework of the whole of the manifested creation, formulating and expressing the primary principles emanating from the subtler Sephirah. It is, as it were, a treasure house of images on a higher arc. But whereas the astral plane is peopled by images reflected from forms, the images of the sphere of Tiphareth are those formulating and, as it were, crystallizing out from the spiritual emanations of the higher potencies. So if you want to look at this in a religious way, that's pretty much what Christ is, right? Christ is the physical manifestation of the energies of the Father into the Son, so to speak. That goes back to the same thing as I am in the Father in me, and I and you, or something like that. But no one can get to the Father but through me. He's talking about that whole middle pillar right there. Tiphareth mediates between the microcosm and the macrocosm. So anytime you hear the microcosm and the macrocosm, as above, so below, anytime you hear that, think about Tiphareth being in the middle, right? Or if you want to think about the physical world, and this is me talking, not the book, the physical world and the spiritual world, like a twisting figure eight or whatever, that kind of works together in this co-creative, weird cycling process. Tiphareth would be the kind of stamp in the middle between those two knots that are coming together. It is the keynote of the sphere of Shemesh, wherein the sun that is behind the sun focuses into manifestation. In the anatomy of the divine man is the In the anatomy of the divine man is the interpretation of all organization and evolution. In fact, the material universe, it's literally the organs and the members of this divine man, and it is through an understanding of the soul of Adam Kadmon, which consists of the influxes of the emanations, that we can interpret his anatomy in terms of function, which is the only way in which anatomy can be intelligently appreciated. It is because science is content largely to be descriptive and shrinks from purposeful explanations that is so barren of all philosophical import. That's because they're scientists. They're not philosophers. That's your job, Dion. So in transcendental psychology, which is the anatomy of the microcosm, the breast is the correspondent assigned to Tiphareth, and the breast are the lungs and the heart, and immediately below these organs, and intimately connected with them and controlling them, is the greatest network of nerves in the body, known as the solar plexus, aptly so named by the ancient anatomists. That could be true. Listen, I tried to pierce my nipple once when I was younger, and someone warned me against it. I've done a lot of stupid stuff when I was younger, but I'll tell you this story real quick because I'm getting bored. Even though this stuff is cool, I'm getting bored reading it a little bit. So I tried to pierce my nipple when I was younger, and everybody's like, "Don't do it. There's so many nerve endings there." Well, this is where I really screwed up. This is like the white trashiest redneck way to pierce your own nipple. Why the hell am I piercing my nipple? Who does that crap? I have transformed many times. I'm a different person. So I was working on in construction at the time, and I took a little block, like a little tiny block of wood, and I sharpened one of those diamond stud earrings. I wasn't licensed to be a piercer or anything. I was an idiot, right? And I put the block on one side of my nipple, and I figured I was stupid. I was with my friends, so we'd done a whole bunch of push-ups. So, we was hoping that the nipple would stick out a little further. And I stuck the stud into the nipple and pushed up on the block. I was actually piercing my nipple like an idiot. So when you get a nipple piercing, it pierces behind the nipple, not the damn nipple itself. Dude, I thought I was tough. I almost passed out twice. I'm just saying, she's right about the nerve endings based on my experience in the chest. Man, I've done some stupid stuff when I was young. Where did I leave off? The lungs maintain a singularly intimate relationship between the microcosm and the macrocosm by determining the ceaseless tidal motion of the atmosphere in and out, and that never ceases day or night, until the golden bowl is broken and the silver cord is loosed and we cease to breathe. The heart determines the circulation of the blood. And the blood, as Paracelsus truly said, is a singular fluid. Modern medicine knows well that what sunlight means to the blood. It has also discovered the chlorophyll, which is the green substance in the leaves of plants, which enables them to utilize the sunlight as the source of energy, which has a very potent influence upon the blood pressure. Yeah, use an ice cube. I didn't know what I was doing, man. Here's the thing. I hope you guys got all that. That's pretty important stuff I was just talking about, by the way. It's just like I'm getting weird heat stuff going on, and I'm a little bit delirious because I didn't get much sleep. But here's the thing. I was in my 20s, like early 20s. I think I was maybe 21. I was shredded. I had no fat on me except for my stomach and maybe my rump a little bit. But everything, I was like, a walking badass. I thought I was this big time badass, whatever, picking bar fights, whatever, you name it. And you just, like when you're that young and that stupid, at least I was, you get to where you start to get bored with life and you start doing stuff that makes no sense, like the guys on Jackass, so to speak. And I thought that it would make me totally awesome and badass, like Mr. T, if I pierced my nipple or something, man. By the way, we did finish the process. Most piercings just go click and you're done. Little pain. But if you try to get anything to the gristle of a nipple, which is not the proper way, by the way, you're supposed to, like I said, pierce behind the nipple. It doesn't just go straight through. It takes time to get through that shit, and it's excruciating. So me and my buddies were testing our toughness, right? You want to hear the weirder part? I'll finish the story. So we went to one of these professional piercing places and showed them what we did. Like we're trying to brag about our stupidity or something, And they laughed us out of the building. Two of Aaron's got pushed out. Junior's got pushed out because the nipple will naturally push the shit out because you don't pierce the nipple. You pierce kind of behind it. Mine didn't get pushed out. Mine stayed in. And I bragged about that for a year. I was like, mine stayed in, and I left it there. It was a good icebreaker. Like if I ran out of stuff to talk about in a bar or something, I'd be like, did you know I pierced my actual nipple and it's still there? And people would be like, what? Yeah, I'm not the same person at all. I almost feel like that person died at one point in my life and I invoked some different being, The three magical images of Tiphareth are curious, for at first sight they are so utterly unrelated that each one appears to cancel out the others. But in the light of what we know now concerning Tiphareth, their significance and relationship appears clearly, speaking through the language of symbolism, especially when studied in the light of the life of Jesus Christ, the Son. Tiphareth being the first coagulation of the supernals is aptly represented as the newborn child in the manger of Bethlehem. As the sacrificed God, he becomes the mediator between God and man. And when he has risen from the dead as a king, he comes into his kingdom. And Tiphareth is again a child, or is the child of Kether and the king of Malkuth. And in his own sphere lies sacrificed. We shall not understand Tiphareth unless we have some concept of the real meaning of sacrifice, which is very different to the popular one. No, I didn't try to pierce anything else on my own. Not after that, no. So the very popular idea of sacrifice, which conceives of it as the voluntary loss of something dear. Sacrifice is the translation of force from one form to another. There is no such thing as the total destruction of force. However completely it disappears from our ken, it maintains itself in some other form according to the great natural law of the conservation of energy, which is the law that maintains our universe in existence. Energy may be locked up in form and therefore static, or it may be free from its bondage to form and in circulation. So when we make a sacrifice of any sort, we take a static form of energy and by breaking up the form that imprisons it, put it into free circulation in the cosmos. That which we sacrifice in one form turns up again in due course in another form. Isn't that how the Wicker Man movie came about when they burned him inside that big thing? They thought the same thing. Aptly, this concept to the religious and ethical ideas of sacrifice and some are very valuable clues are obtained. The god name of this sphere is, the god name used or invoked in this sphere is Aloha Va Da'ath. Aloha Va Da'ath, which associates it intimately with the invisible Sephirah that comes between it and Kether. This Sephirah, as we have already seen, may be best understood as apprehension or the dawning of consciousness or the golden dawn. Anybody ever wonder why they called it that? And we may interpret the phrase or the tetragrammaton. Sometimes it's called tetragrammaton Aloha Va Da'ath, which is a long phrase, as God made manifest in the sphere of the mind. So in the microcosm, Tiphareth represents the higher psychism, the mode of consciousness of the individuality, the junior higher self, so to speak. It is essentially the sphere of religious mysticism as distinguished from the magic and psychism of Yesod. For be it remembered, the Sephirah of the central pillar on the tree represents levels of consciousness, and the Sephirah on the side pillars, again, represent powers and modes of function. Tiphareth is also said to be the sphere of the great masters, or the greater masters. It is the temple not made with hands, eternal in the heavens, and the great white lodge. So anytime you hear someone talking about the great white lodge, they're talking about Tiphareth. It is here that the initiated adept functions when in the higher consciousness, here that he hopes to meet the masters. And it is by the means of the name and by an understanding of the significance of the name of Aloha Va Da'ath that he opens up the higher consciousness. Damn, this is a long one, like Bina. For be it noted that it is only in proportion to the significance a word has for us that it becomes a word of power. The name of his victim is a word of power to a murderer, and such it is recognized potency that in some countries an instrument to register the changes of blood pressure is attached to the arm of a suspect while he is being questioned by the police. And the name of the dead man, in other words, connected with the crime, are suddenly whispered in his ear. And if these words of power, quote, words of power, for him, the instrument or the blood pressure thing will go up. It registers beyond all question. So that's like a gotcha thing. I don't think they can use that in court, though. It is popularly believed that the names of power exercise direct influence over spirits, angels, demons, and such like. But this is not so. The names of power exercises its influence upon the magician, and by exalting and directing consciousness, enables him to get in touch with the chosen type of spiritual influence that he chooses if he has had experience of that particular type of influence. The word of power will stir potent subconscious memories, if he has not, and approaches the matter in the unimaginative and incredulous spirit of the scholar, or the barbarous names of evocation will be just hocus pocus for him. But be it noted that, to the believing Catholic, hocus pocus, which is the Protestant's name for deception and superstition, and from which is derived the word hoax, means hoc est corpus, which is an altogether different story. So many lies in the viewpoint in these matters. Damn, she goes all over the place too. Basically what she's saying is if you experience these energies, you can and associate them properly, and you have the experience of them, you can invoke these names of power. And it's not really the the names of power themselves that are acting upon these influences or whatever. It's the fact that you, the magician or the person, has had these experiences with these energies, and therefore it works through you. Damn. See, that's like 4 sentences tops. She goes like, it sounds like she's trying to make everything sound smarter, and it just confuses the hell out of you. To me, that's what it seems like she's doing. Therefore, it has a definite spiritual experience, which is assigned to each Sephiroth. And until a person has had the experience of that Sephiroth, he's not an initiate of that Sephiroth, and cannot make use of its names of power, even if he knows them. As tradition has it, it is not enough to know a name of power, one must also know how to vibrate it. It is generally believed that the vibration of a name of power is the right note on which to chant it, but magical vibration is something much more than that. When one is deeply moved and at the same time devotionally exalted, the voice drops several tones below its normal pitch and becomes resonant and vibrant. It is in this tremor of emotion, y'all check this out, right? It is in this tremor of emotion combined with the resonance of devotion which constitutes the vibration of a name. And this cannot be learned or taught. It can only be spontaneous. It is like the wind, it bloweth where it listeth, and when it comes it shakes one from head to heel with the wave of a fiery heat, and all who hear it involuntarily come to attention. It is an extraordinary experience to hear a word of power vibrated. It is an even more extraordinary experience to vibrate a word of power. See, this is what I was saying, like when I went and spoke at the CAC thing, and we were vibrating like just the vowels. And I think someone asked me, didn't they? Yeah, someone asked me, like, how do we vibrate these vowels? How are we supposed to do it? Do we sing it? Do we vibrate it? And from my experience, because of what she's talking about, because I've had this experience that she's talking about, without you doing your own natural vibration, you're never going to get there. So you just start out vibrating these names of power or words of power or your chants, whatever you do, naturally, like how it comes out. Because like if you're doing this stuff and you're in your mind worried about how you look or how you sound or whatever, like it's just going to screw everything up. But if you're alone, that doesn't matter. So as you keep practicing and vibrating these names, eventually you start getting into the ritual, and you'll start not only vibrating the names, but the visions that you're envisioning will actually start triggering emotional things in you. And then once you really like give into the ceremony, just like watching a play or listening to a song, you're activating the right side of the brain or the feminine side of the brain. But once you really give into this experience and then you vibrate a word of power, a lot of times what she's talking about will happen, and you'll feel like the mystical vibration of it. It's a whole different feeling. I can never do it around people. This is why, like back in the day, people was like, do magic with me. Let's do magic together. And very rarely am I like, it's a bad idea for me to put you in my circle because it's going to cause shit for all of us. But I can show you kind of like how it's done, like I do in the audios that you can download. I have some of those too. I can show you how it's done, and then you can go naturally work it out yourself, you know. I'm not saying people shouldn't do magic together, but like this type of magic, I don't know, man. You should really work on your own, I think, for a while until you find a person, even a partner even, that kind of understands it before you start sharing this stuff. Jesus. Tiphareth, it's hot. The archangel of Tiphareth is Raphael, the spirit that standeth in the sun, who is also the angel of healing. So when the initiate is working on the tree, that is to say, is building up in his imagination a diagram of the tree of life in his aura, he formulates Tiphareth in his solar plexus between the abdomen and the breast. It's just so like when you do the middle pillar ritual, you'll say Aloha Vadaoth, right? When you touch your solar plexus, and you'll imagine that sphere lighting up. If he intends to work in the sphere of the sixth Sephiroth and concentrates the power in the center, he will find that he himself has suddenly become a spirit standing in the sun, with the blazing photosphere all around him. It is one thing to formulate a Sephirah in one's aura, but it is quite another to find oneself right inside the Sephirah. Although one can receive the influence of a Sephirah by means of the former operation, and it's a good routine method for daily meditation, it is not until one has everted, as it were, turned clean inside out, so that the position is reversed, and instead of the sphere being inside one is inside the sphere, that one can work with the power of a Sephirah. I guess you should have, damn it, Dion Fortune, you should have just left it at that first sentence. Now you done confused everybody. It is this experience which is the culmination of the initiations of the Sephirah. All right, so if you just keep working with this stuff until you experience that you're actually inside the sphere, and that goes along with all the other Sephirah too, right? So the order of the angels of Tiphareth are the Malachim, or kings. These are the spiritual principles of natural forces, and no one can control or even safely make contact with elemental principles unless he holds the initiation of Tiphareth, which is that of minor adept. For he must have been accepted by the elemental kings, that is to say, he must have realized the ultimate spiritual nature of natural forces before he can handle them in their elemental form. In their subjective elemental form, they appear in the microcosm as powerful instincts of combat, or of reproduction, or of self-abasement, or self-aggrandizement, and all those emotional factors known to the psychologist. It is obvious, therefore, that if we stir and stimulate these emotions in our natures, it must be in order that we may use them as servants of the higher self, directed by reason and spiritual principle. It is necessary, therefore, that when we operate the elemental forces, we do so through the kings under the presidency of the archangel and by the invocation of the holy name of God appropriate to that sphere. There's the magical formula. All right. Microcosmically, this means that the powerful elemental driving forces of our nature are correlated with the higher self instead of being disassociated into cliffotic underworlds of the Freudian unconscious. Damn, this is the longest chapter in the book, I think. Let me see how much I got left here. I'm just checking. I can't. I'll lose my spot. Damn it. Elemental operations are not, of course, performed in the sphere of Tiphareth, but it is essential that they should be controlled from the sphere of Tiphareth if they are to remain white magic, not black magic. If there is no such higher control, they will soon slide off into black magic. And it is said that at the fall of the four lower Sephiroth became detached from Tiphareth and assimilated into the Clipoth. So when the elemental forces become detached from their spiritual principles and our concepts so that they become ends in themselves, even if no evil but merely experimentation is intended, a fall still takes place and degeneration soon follows. But when we clearly realize the spiritual principle behind all natural things, they are then in a state of innocence. To use a theological term with a definite connotation, they are unfallen, and we can safely work with them and advantageously develop them in our own natures, thus bringing about the unrepression and balance so necessary to mental health. This correlation of the natural with the spiritual, thus maintaining it unfallen and in a state of innocency, is a very important point in all practical workings in any form of magic. As has already been seen, two spiritual experiences go to make up the initiation of Tiphareth, the vision of the harmony of things and the vision of the mysteries of the crucifixion. So both experiences are in Tiphareth. The mysteries of the crucifixion and the mysteries of the vision of harmony. We have already seen in another connection that there are two aspects to Tiphareth, and therefore must be two spiritual experiences in its initiation. In the vision of the harmony of things, we see deep into the spiritual side of nature. In other words, we meet the angelic kings, or the Malachim, and through this experience we understand that the natural is but the dense aspect of the spiritual, or the outer robe of concealment covering the inner robe of glory. It is this understanding of the spiritual significance of the natural, which is so lamentably lacking in our religious life today, and which is responsible for so much neurotic ill health and so much married unhappiness. It is through this vision of the harmony of things that we are made one with nature, not by means of elemental contacts. But human beings who are in any wise raised by culture above the primitive cannot become one with nature upon the elemental level, for to do so is degeneration, and they become beastly in both senses of the word. The nature contacts are made through the angelic kings of the elements in the sphere of Tiphareth, in other words, through the realization of the spiritual principles behind natural things, and the initiate then comes to the elemental kings in the name of their presiding king. He descends into the elemental kingdoms from above, as it were, bringing with him his manhood or womanhood. Thus he is an initiator to the elementals, but if he meets them on their own level, he abrogates his manhood or womanhood and returns to an earlier phase of evolution. Elemental force, not limited and kept in check by the limitations of an animal brain, is bound to be unbalanced force when it flows through the wide channels of human intellect, and the result is chaos, which is one of the kingdoms of the Clip-Off. I hope you guys understand the vision and harmony of things through all that confusing stuff she just said. I do, but I don't have time to explain it all because I have to finish this chapter, I'm thinking here. So the mysteries of the crucifixion, which is the other aspect of the mystery of Tiphareth, are both macrocosmic and microcosmic. In their macrocosmic aspect, we find them in the midst of the great redeemers of mankind, who are always born of a god and a virgin mother, and thus again emphasizing the dual nature of Tiphareth, wherein from the force and form meet together. But let us not forget their microcosmic aspect as an experience of mystical consciousness. So it is by means of an understanding of the mysteries of the crucifixion, which concern the magical power of sacrifice, that we are able to transcend the limitations of brain consciousness, limited to sensation and habituated to form, and enter into the wider consciousness of higher psychism. We thus become able to transcend form and thereby realize the latent force, changing it from static to kinetic, and rendering it available for the great work, which is regeneration. Damn. The characteristic of virtue of the sphere of Tiphareth is devotion to this great work, and devotion is a very important factor in the way of initiation that leads to the higher consciousness, and we must therefore examine it carefully and analyze it into the factors of which it consists. Devotion might be defined as love for something higher than ourselves, something that evokes our idealism, which, while we despair of becoming equal to it, yet makes us aspire to become like it. Quote, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory. End quote. So when a stronger emotional content is infused into devotion, and it becomes adoration, it carries us across the great gulf fixed between the tangible and the intangible, and enables us to apprehend things that the eye cannot see nor hear. It is this devotion, rising to adoration in the great work, which initiates us into the mysteries of the crucifixion. The vice that is assigned to Tiphareth is pride. And in this attribution, like the pride of a lion, right? So in this attribution, we have some very true psychology. Pride has its roots in egoism, and as long as we are self-centered, we cannot be made one with all things. She should just end it right there. In the true selflessness of the path, the soul overflows its boundaries and enters into all things through limitless sympathy and perfect love. But in pride, the soul tries to extend its boundaries till it possesses all things, and it's very different matter to possess a thing to being made one with it. It's a totally different thing. That's why relationships don't work when you try to possess and control them, instead of just being one with it. Wherein it equally possesses us in perfect reciprocity. It is this one-sided arrangement which is the vice of the adept. He must give as well as receive, and he must give himself unreservedly if he would participate in mystical union, which is the fruit of the sacrifice of the crucifixion. Quote, let him who would be the greatest among you be the servant of all, end quote, said our Lord. The symbols associated with Tiphareth are the layman, the rosy cross, the Calvary cross, the truncated pyramid, and the cube. The layman is the symbol upon the breast of the adept and indicates the force he represents. Here's like a picture of the rose cross layman, kind of. Can y'all see that? It's crazy how the green's kind of, that's not the whole thing, but that's kind of like a smaller version of it. There's still, It's just like the back of Crowley's card. If you really look it up, it has more stuff to it, but I can't get into that right now. So an adept performing in the sphere of Shemesh, for instance, would wear this upon his breast, an image of the sun in splendor. A layman is the magical weapon of Tiphareth, and it is therefore becomes necessary to say something concerning the nature of magical weapons in general in order that the function of a layman can be understood. So a magical weapon is some object which is found to be suitable as a vehicle for force of a particular type. For instance, the magical weapon of the element of water is a cup, or the chalice, or the magical weapon of the element of fire is a lighted lamp, or a wand, right? These objects are chosen because their nature is congenial to the active force that it is invoked, or in modern language, because their form suggests the force to the imagination by association of ideas. So Tiphareth is traditionally associated with the breast, both by virtue of the network of nerves, which is called the solar plexus, and by its position when the tree is built up in the aura. And consequently, the breast jewel of the adept is held to be the focus of the Tipharetic force. This is why the layman's like right here in the chest, right? Whatever operation may be performed. The actual force operating in its own sphere is represented by the magical weapon assigned to it. For instance, an adept performing an operation of the element of water would have as his magical weapon the cup, and with the cup would make all signs, and upon the cup would concentrate the force called down by invocation. But upon his breast would be the sigil of the element of water, and this would be recognized as representing the spiritual factor in the operation and as referring to the archangel over that particular kingdom. Unless the adept understands the significance of this layman, as distinguished from his magical weapon, he is not an adept at all, but just a wizard. That's her words. The Rosy Cross and the Calvary Cross are both given as symbols of the sphere of Tiphareth in order to understand their significance. It is necessary to say something concerning crosses in general and how they are used in systems of symbolism. Although the cross with which we are most generally familiar is the Calvary Cross, owing to its association with Christianity, there are many other forms of the cross, and each has its own significance. The equal arm cross, such as the Red Cross of the Army Medical Service, is called by the initiates the cross of nature and represent power and balance. It is to be found at the top of some Celtic crosses, often enclosed in a circle, so that the Celtic cross actually consists of a tapering shaft ending in a nature cross and has no relationship whatsoever to the Calvary Cross, which is the cross of Christianity. The tapering shaft of the Celtic cross, in actual fact, a truncated pyramid, and examples of this type of Celtic cross exist which leave no doubt upon this point whatsoever. Some archaic forms suggest the imposition of the cross and circle upon the conical phallic stone, which is so universal an object in primitive worship. Damn, we're getting there. The swastika is also a nature cross and is sometimes called the cross of Thor or the hammer of Thor, its form being supposed to indicate the whirling actions of his thunderbolts or the whirling actions of the universe or form. The Calvary Cross is the cross of sacrifice and should be properly be colored black. Its shaft should be 3 times the length of its arms, and the length of each arm 3 times its width. Meditation on this cross brings initiation through suffering, sacrifice, and self-abnegation. The crucifix is, of course, an elaboration of the Calvary Cross. The circle upon the cross is an initiatory symbol, especially when the cross is raised upon 3 steps, as it should be in this form. The circle indicates eternal life, also wisdom, and we see a form of it in the emblem of the Theosophical Society, which has for its badge the serpent that holdeth his tail in his mouth. A Calvary cross with the circle superimposed means initiation by the way of the cross, and the 3 steps are the 3 degrees of illumination. It is this which is also called the Rosy Cross. The fanciful object which brambles growing over it is not an initiatory symbol at all. The rose associated with the cross in Western symbolism is the Rosa Mundi and is a key to the interpretation of the nature forces. On its petals are marked the 32 signs of the natural forces, and these correspond to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the 10 holy sephira on the tree, and these in turn are associated to the 32 paths of the tree of life, and this is called the key to the understanding of the Rosa Mundi, and also the damn 32 degrees of Freemasonry and all that stuff. So it's not as crazily evil as you think. The curious scribbles that are called the sigils of the elementary spirits are made by drawing lines from one to another of the letters of their names on the rose. I'll get into all this stuff later. doing like sigils based upon the rose, you know. In the light of this explanation, we are at no loss to understand the value of the claims of those organizations which sport a floral emblem as their symbol. They are on par with those of the gentleman who demanded of his, what is that? Haberdasher a public school tie with a bit of red in it. The cube is usually said to be assigned to Tiphareth because it is a six-sided figure, and as 6 is the number of Tiphareth. But there is more than this in the symbolism of the cube. The cube is the simplest form of a solid, and such is the appropriate symbol of Tiphareth, in whose sphere is found the first foreshadowing of form. The symbol of Malkuth is the double cube, which symbolizes as above, so below. And it's also the altar that magicians use in the Golden Dawn, too, is the double cube black altar. The pyramid symbolizes the perfected man, broad-based on earth and tapering to unity in the heavens. In other words, the episimus. The truncated pyramid symbolizes the initiated adept or adeptus minor who has passed within the veil but has not yet completed his grades. This pyramid, to whose 6 sides correspond the 6 central sephira which constitute the Adam Kadmon, or the archetypal man, is completed by the addition of the 3 supernals which terminate in the unity of Kether. The 6s of the tarot suits are also assigned to Tiphareth, and in them the harmonious and balanced nature of the sephira shows clearly. The 6 of wands is the Lord of victory, the 6 of cups the Lord of joy, and even the maleficent suit of swords is tuned to harmony in this sphere. The 6 of swords, which is known as the Lord of earned success, that is to say, success achieved after struggle. And the 6 of pentacles is material success, in other words, power and equilibrium. Holy shit. And that's the end of Tiphareth. You're currently 32. That's cool. Aaron's rod. Yep. Yeah. Wands, lance, spear, as in the one that stabbed Jesus I recently came across. So quantum subatomic is the building block or its self-consciousness. Dion Fortune was in the Golden Dawn, but she was still trying to veil the practices because she was in hot water being sued by the original temple. Yeah, I heard that. That's why she goes on all these different tangents when she's talking about the stuff, because it seems like she's trying to articulate it in a way that people don't get upset with her, you know? So when we do the show tomorrow night, we're going to get, I think there won't be any more super long chapters, but Tiphareth is really important because that's where you're really trying to get to, is that Christ-like force or Osiris-like force, whatever you want to call it. All of the mysteries, all of the adeptship is where you're trying to get to. When you go through actual ceremonial magical schools and you get to the end of it and you become an adept, that's where you are, is in Tiphareth. And then you start this alchemical thing. And I've talked about it a million times, but it's pretty important. So I think that's why she made it a pretty long chapter. So when we get back tomorrow, we're going to get down to the lower spheres, which Tiphareth is at the head of, right? And this is where stuff really starts to come into denser form. So these 3 here are in the astral, and then you got Malkuth in the earth, which where we reside. Later on, we'll talk about the past and stuff. I don't know if that's a teaching. That's just me reading and trying to interpret Dion Fortune, and then trying not to keep my ADD intact, and then for some reason talked about when I pierced my nipple totally wrong by myself and made a fool of myself, but still kept the nipple piercing. Crazy show, right? It's hot. This is what heat does to you. Speaking of which, if you want to help out and get a tarot reading, I'm doing a sale, $30, right? 70% off, $30. You get 1 hour with me, a tarot spread, a Golden Dawn tarot spread, not here's 3 cards and here's your astrological energies and I'm going to make you feel good. It's a deep discussion. We have fun, and I've gotten to know a few people already, brand new people. So far, everybody that's done this, we have some really cool people in this audience. It may not be the largest audience in the world, but you some bitches are cool. I like you guys, for sure. We should all hang out sometime. Anyways, I got to get out of here. I got to go jump in some water somewhere, take a cold shower or something. Go check out the Fringe FM. Stay tuned. Jess Rogie's coming up within the hour. She'll be coming on at the top of the next hour. Right? Love you guys. Night, night. Sweet dreams. Thanks for supporting this.